All right, so what we are going to do today, we have all these various scenes, and we just want to give you an auditory and somewhat visual. We have a whiteboard behind us. Rob is going to start using just a demonstration and a preview of what we're going to be doing for each of these. We're breaking them down into a lot of different sections of the day. The important sections, the first section is going to be hair and makeup, the bride getting dressed, and the bridal photo session. A lot of times during this time, this is where Rob and I are looking for the story. We're trying to find the theme of what's going on in the wedding, because in the morning is when we have a little bit more time to capture a little bit more of the detail of that. So I don't know, do you want to explain your thought process there?
Yeah, well, I generally have, sort of a process when I walk into a bride's house in the morning, and, when I'm doing my films, I do the bride's house, and my second cinematographer will go to the groom, and he has a whole other process, okay? But my process for the groom's prep, or for the bride's prep, is basically do details first. So I'm gonna shoot like the rings, the dress, the shoes, and that sort of thing, while the bride's still in the pre-getting ready phase. So she might be halfway done with her hair. I'm not gonna shoot her during this point. She's not gonna wanna be, on her film, half done with the hair half up and half in her face. So I'm not gonna shoot that. I'm gonna concentrate on details. And then when the bride is to a point where I believe she's presentable enough to put on camera, we'll start focusing on makeup shots and telling the story around that. I don't use a whole lot of makeup shots in my stuff, and especially in fusion pieces, you might use one shot. But I'm looking for not just the standard shot from the front of her getting makeup done. I'm looking for different angles, looking for light, looking for how maybe just the brush and the hand is working feverishly to get her done because maybe they're running late, or maybe the intensity on the makeup artist's face. A lot of times I shoot the makeup artist because they're like, and they're like, and there's a lot of drama and tension in that. And then the bride's usually like this. She sits there, she's looking like a cadaver, just getting the, so you don't really want to focus too much on that. But we focus on close-ups and things like that just to kind of tell the story. And literally, this is like a 3 or 4 shot sequence. I don't do a whole lot with it. But again, just like we talked about sequences, we work 360. So you'll see when we shoot this, I'm working all around the subject, and maybe I'll even back up far away and do some sort of a wide shot. Some sort of a slider, maybe a reflection in a piece of glass or in a picture frame or something like that. So that's, for the bride getting dressed, same thing. I'm just looking for moments. I'm looking for emotion. Mom, at some point, will usually cry when the bride is getting ready. Sometimes I've seen dad walk in the room and just gush. Yes. So we're always waiting and prepared for that. And you know how we talk about on wedding days, it should just be, you shouldn't try to handle the photo and video yourself. You should have somebody else doing the video. That person needs to be looking for these things. That person needs to be looking for, it's called anticipating action. Just being ready for, if he knows dad's out in the hallway or dad's finishing up, at some point he's gonna walk in the room. And at that point, he's probably gonna see the bride in her dress, and there's gonna be a reaction shot there. So it's important to be ready for that. But mom helping the bride with the back of the dress, and not just the same old shot of the zip up, but mom's face as that happens, because maybe she struggles a little bit.
She usually does.
Wedding days, to me, I don't want them to be perfect. I don't want every shot to look like everything went smoothly. I want it to be what it was. And
a lot of times it's not so perfect.
Right. A lot of my groom's prep stuff is the guys just getting frustrated folding the stupid handkerchief. They're just like, how the hell do you do this? But that's part of the day, and we want to incorporate some of that. So you can get beauty shots, but still have that story and that drama kind of mixed in there. So you're going to see when we go over to the window and we're working with the bride getting ready, that's what I'm looking for, the facial reactions, close-ups. And then I'll get a couple wide shots too. But again, sequencing in 360. And then the bridal photo session is more Vanessa's thing,
right.
For photos. That's more static. The bride's usually standing in one place. But then during those parts for video, I'll look for light. I'll look for like beautiful light hitting the bride. And maybe I'll do like a series of slider shots, or maybe just 1 or 2, nice reflections with maybe a tilt or a pan. You'll see when we actually do this that I'm not really doing a whole lot with the bridal photo session, because again, there's not a whole lot of motion happening there. But that's my thought process walking into the bride's prep. Another thing to think about, and we're not going to really have a bridal party here today, but a bridal party can really give you a lot of story as well. A good bridal party, if they're not being obnoxious and constantly. Here's the thing: when I walk into a bride's house, because audio is very important to me, I always ask them, "Can we turn the music off?" And this may or may not bode well with bridesmaids who are just look at the day as an excuse to drink and get drunk and be silly.
Not all bridesmaids.
Not all bridesmaids, but a lot, you know, we're also in New Jersey, which is a totally different story. But, you know, that's something to think about. You want to, you know, prepare your environment for what you're going to shoot. So, you know, when you walk in, if there's like Jay-Z blasting, you want to be like, you know what? It's just cool for now, but maybe when we start doing the bride getting ready, maybe we can turn it off. This way, you know the parts that you need the audio for, you'll have. So don't be afraid to ask. And I've never had a bride tell me, no, you can't do that. Because brides know when they hire us, they want the best product that we can give them. And I make that clear to them. So
that's just one thing to notice. One of the things that we talked about yesterday was being able to eliminate audio problems before they start, and things like the music in the background. Or a lot of times we work in hotel rooms, and you walk in and the air conditioning is blasting, and usually hotel air conditioners make a lot of noise, and we usually have to turn them off.
Only for like,
Only for a little while.
We don't want to make everybody sweat, but the thing is, when the time comes, I'll let it be on for when the bride is getting dressed, because I know I can remove a little bit of sound afterwards. It's fine. But if I sit the bride down to go over her vows, that thing's getting turned off, because I want to make sure that audio is going to be a key part of my story. I want to make sure it's there. But yeah, audio, you know, these are things you want to think about. So pretty much for bride's prep, that's about it. I'll focus on the bridal party for story a lot of the times, like the maid of honor going over her speech, or just the bridesmaids helping each other get ready. You know, tying the sashes, and, you know, packing their little go bags, and, you know, pouring mimosas and things like that. These are all things that you can think about.
Lots of these little things just become little sequencing parts, or little details that tell a story.
Yeah, for example, like mimosas, okay? If I hear a bridesmaid call out, bride's name, do you want a mimosa? And she goes, yes, I want a mimosa. And I know she's going to go to the fridge, she's going to get it out, she's going to pop the cork, she's going to pour the champagne, she's going to open the orange juice container, and that's a sequence. You can already see where you're going with this, okay? Shot of her pulling it out, shot of her screwing in the corkscrew, shot of her pulling it out, and each of these is a different angle. So.
And I always joke with Rob that sometimes I get jealous of him shooting video, because some of the things that he shoots, if I had taken a still frame from any of those, photographically, it wouldn't have made sense, because it's not the full sequence, or it's not the full story. But when you're able to capture more of the story through video, it's just fun to be able to do that.
Yeah, we definitely try to do that. So the next thing we're going to cover is the first look. So we're not going to cover like groom's prep today. Like, we're just going to assume the groom is getting ready and we have somebody there and shooting that. A lot of times it's just, if you're just doing fusion, you may not even send somebody to the groom's prep.
Right.
So we just felt like we'd leave that out. As far as the first look, this bride and groom are going to see each other before the ceremony, and then we're going to do a photo session, and then they're going to get married. Okay, so this is common where we are. They like to do this, and we're going to actually set it up so where we have them in the optimal position, so when they see each other for the first time, it unfolds nicely in front of the camera. And this is the one thing, I think I mentioned this yesterday that I insist on having control over for a wedding, because even if I'm working with a photographer I don't know, if it's like not Vanessa, you know, I always make sure to contact the photographer ahead of time and say, look, you know, I'll help you out with whatever you need. You can do whatever you want for the photo session. I just really would like if I could have some control during the first look. And 99.98% of the time, they're like, cool, if I don't have to set it up, that's fine. You just go ahead and do it. And I'm always respectful of them. I always make sure I leave them avenues to get their shots, and, you know, if they want to reenact or whatever, or a lot of the times they just want the initial reaction. So we'll show you how we do that.
Well, for the first look, you know, you're having the video guy on your team, so you have the advantage of control and putting people where you want. So I don't know if you want to demonstrate just ideally on the whiteboard kind of positions.
Absolutely. There's a couple different ideas that I like to do. I mean, and I don't want to do the first look the same way every time, because to me that gets very boring very fast. And the typical one you may have seen is kind of like, you know, that is a head. Okay, you kind of have this shot of the groom is kind of standing there looking maybe off camera, right? And then the bride comes walking up from behind, you know, this way, and that's like the first shot. And then your second shot is something like, okay, we see the groom, that's a nose.
I would have went for stick figures.
We see the groom looking this way, right? And I'm a Pictionary freak. I love Pictionary, and it's too bad I'm horrible at. So the groom's looking this way, basically, and then with the second shot, we see the bride walk into the frame here, and she's walking toward him, right? And then you maybe have a third shot where this is just build-up. They haven't seen each other yet, right? And then the final shot, and this is the money shot that everybody wants to get, including the photographer, is when we basically have a shot from This is the bride. This is the groom. He first starts out looking that way. We have him turn this way, and he sees her. So we see his face for the reaction. You know? So that's a quick 1, 2, 3 first look. And it's simple camera blocking. You know? So it's just one shot here. And you don't need multiple cameras to do this. You'd set up your first camera up in front. You focus on the groom. You move to the side. You have maybe a wide. You can even do this as an extreme wide shot. Like an example of an extreme wide shot would be, you know, that's your environment, and then they're down here, and she's walking toward him like that. You know, half in the frame, half out of the frame, you know, with their bodies. And there's a lot of negative space up on top, right? So then she walks to him, and then the third shot is you just flip the camera around, and then you get the reaction. Very simple. That's about as simple as a first look can get. We like to get a little creative, and you know, we'll probably do something similar to this today, just to kind of illustrate how we use the camera. But we've done cute ideas in other ways too, where we kind of had, you know, the bride and groom are both standing. They start off standing in frame, but they're both looking in different directions, right? And we have them walk backwards toward each other, right? And then they get closer, and then they grab hands down here, like this, and then we have them look over. We'll have them talk to each other a little bit. We like to mic up the groom for this part, because we'll have them talk to each other a little bit before they actually see each other, and they get all like this. And then they turn and see each other. So that's a 2-shot sequence. First look, perfect for a fusion piece, because you know you can just slap that into a fusion piece, 2 shots, and then you have your photos to mix in. So we'll do this both ways. Maybe we'll kind of illustrate how we would do this both ways. It really doesn't take much time at all. Normally, when I do my cinema stuff, we do this with like 3 cameras. So we do it all like from all the angles at once, and then I'll reenact it, and I'll pull everybody else out. I'll pull out all the cameras, I'll pull out all the personnel, all the photographers, and then I'll do Steadicam. Walking up with the bride with just the entire scene, and then maybe walking around them once, and I'll let them reenact the reaction. A lot of my brides and grooms are pretty good actors and actresses. They'll be like, this is great. So first look, that's pretty much how we block out the first look, and we'll demonstrate how we do that. But this is fun with the whiteboard. I know.
We are actually going to have a ceremony today as well. We have a gorgeous archway being built right now. And Rob looks like he's really excited to show you what he's going to do for the ceremony.
Yeah, I'm just prepping it. Go ahead, you can continue.
All right. But for the ceremony, usually I am in the center aisle. I have to say I would prefer to not be in the center aisle, as I think more of the creative shots tend to be elsewhere as a photographer. But that is definitely one of those control things where I feel like I should be center aisle. If anybody is going to mess up the bride walking down aisle, it's going to be me. You know, so I'm usually in that position, and then I have a second shooter. And there's sort of a rotation that kind of goes on, so that we rotate, and that way your angle with your video person can get all these different angles. And again, you only have one camera, but you can put it together to make it look like you had a lot more. Is that what you're?
Pretty much,
okay.
Yeah. So we're going to assume for today that it's just a, you know, it's a wedding day, and you're a fusion team, and you're the photographer, and you have a video person with you, and this is how we would do this, okay? So your first frame, well, let's use the marker that works. All right, so basically, you know, you're gonna probably want to film, if you're doing fusion, you know, you have the option of filming a lot of the ceremony. I would just focus on filming like the vows in its entirety, and let everything else be just beauty shots. Make it clear to your clients, I cannot stress this enough, make it clear to your clients that you are not covering the day, all right? Because if they think, their natural thought process is, okay, my photographer's doing some video, okay? I've never seen fusion before, but they're doing some sort of video, right? And then after the wedding, you give them a fusion piece that has 17 video shots in it and 30 photographs, or whatever it is, right? And they go, where's the rest of it? Okay, very important to establish early on, listen, I'm only going to be shooting very short clips of the day. If I give you anything that's longer, it's a bonus. And you could even maybe sell that to them separately. Say, hey, you know what? I filmed the whole ceremony from the back. If you wanted, I could put it on a separate DVD for you for X amount of dollars.
Yeah, managing your client expectations is something that we do in business anyway, and this is no exception at all. You really want to even stress more the client expectations with this, and do that obviously by showing them examples and talking about fusion, and you're not replacing their coverage videographer or cinematographer if they're choosing to get that, and they can. Just doing that ahead of time will definitely save both you and your client confusion and grief later on.
Yeah. A lot of the guys and girls that I know that do fusion around us, they usually book it with brides that aren't having any video done.
Yeah, because in this economy, a lot of people just go right to video, and the video is the first thing that they cut, which is sad because it's so beautiful, and it's what you have after the wedding, but it's a reality. So a lot of people cut that, and that's kind of where a lot of photographers have come in and said, hey, I see you can't afford video, but maybe you could afford just a little bit extra, and I can get some motion for you the day of. Because who wouldn't want a little bit of motion, you know, if they can't afford a whole video?
Okay.
That was really good, Rob.
Like that, right?
Wow.
All right, so basically, this is a standard ceremony setup. Okay, you got pews on either side or chairs on either side, as we're gonna have today. You have an aisle and you have an archway and you have the groom standing there waiting to be married, okay? So you can kind of approach this, your video guy could approach this from a couple different ways. Let's get a couple money shots. And these would be the money shots for me, okay? When the bride starts walking down the aisle here, okay? I would want to position him somewhere either like in the pews here. That's a really bad camera, Rob. Okay, somewhere here and focused on the groom's face. Okay, groom's face up close, because this is one shot. This is two shots. When the bride walks past your camera, see, all right, you could definitely get a shot of the bride from the front coming down the aisle. I think that's boring. This is a more interesting way to do it. Let the bride walk past the camera focused on the groom's head, on the groom's face, and she's out of focus, but she walks into the frame, right? And then, basically, you do this as, you put a zoom lens on for this, you're wide at that point, and then you cut to, you zoom in and rack your focus, and then she walks in, or there's his close-up reaction of her, and maybe you get a glimpse of her walking into the frame as she gets closer, something like that. We're not seeing the bride's face come down the aisle, but what's more important, I like the groom's reaction better. I think that's more important when especially if they haven't seen each other for the first time. If they haven't seen each other for the first time, do that. If they have seen each other because they've already done a first look, maybe you'll consider going to the front of the aisle, and that would be simply. And what I like to do is, you can get a shot of the groom from the side, looking up the aisle, getting ready. That's his nose. Kind of, or maybe like a 3/4 shot, so you're seeing, When I do a cross like that, that's like where the eyes are supposed to be, and that's sort of like the face, the angle on the face. So you can sort of shoot him like catty corner, just kind of waiting, and then turn your camera up the aisle. And if you can step behind the groom, if you have a little bit of leeway to do that, you shoot over his shoulder to the bride coming up the aisle like that.
So you're standing in one spot, you turn, and it's kind of like we do as photographers anyway, probably you turn, you get the groom, and you have plenty of time to turn back and get the bride walking down the aisle by pre-focusing on one of the pews and letting her walk into it.
Yeah, a better way to illustrate that would be, you shoot from back here. You can even just go, because a lot of times ceremony sites, there's a little bit of room between the archway and like the wall or something like that. You can find a way to kind of squeeze back there. You won't be in anybody's way. Maybe you can just ask the officiant to take a nudge over this way, or just shoot between them if you have to. And then you're seeing, here's the aisle. That's really bad. Anyway, bride's coming up the aisle and you see her like that. So you're focused on her, right, as she comes up. So that's an option. Money shots, just quick money shots. So you saw like 2 or 3 money shots for the aisle and stuff like that. And then once the vows happen, this is how typically I would do it with one camera. If I had one camera to shoot a ceremony, you want to be quick on your feet, if you can. So they get up there, and now they're facing each other. Okay, and there's the homily happening, and we hear the priest or the officiant, he's saying all this stuff. And we're actually going to demonstrate this today. So maybe go to the center aisle, bride and groom looking at each other, officiant standing between them, the standard shot, right? And he's talking. Maybe just get a couple shots from that. Maybe even film most of the homily if you want to get ambitious. Because remember, we're going to mic him up. We're going to have the sound. For this part, if you have a tripod handy, it would probably be beneficial to use a tripod. Okay, so we would, be in the center aisle, maybe somewhere toward the back, zoomed in, and just getting that sort of a shot. When the officiant says, "Okay, we're going to do our vows," okay, you want to now get to the side angle. And remember we talked about movies and dialogue yesterday, and we talked about bringing you into the conversation. Now is where we really want to start thinking about that really nice, shallow depth of field to bring us into that moment, right?
And you're probably going to be using a longer lens, and that sort of compression of a longer lens is also going to do the same thing and draw your eye into the subject.
Okay. So what we'll do first is usually, well, we're not going to see her nose from this angle. So normally, the groom says his vows first, right? So I'm going to come over here. That's the groom's head, all right? And this is really hard to illustrate, but basically I'm shooting over the bride's shoulder, okay, and getting the groom talking to the bride the whole time. So you have to make a decision here. Do you want to stay on the one side and just get the groom saying his? Remember, you're getting the audio of both, but are you going to focus on just one of them giving their vows, or are you going to try to get both?
The nice thing about most ceremonies is to do the vows and then immediately after the rings. So you could get the groom doing the vows, but then by the time you walk around, you get the bride saying her
whatever she says when they
speech.
put the ring on, right? So that's another way to do it. Or if like space allows and you can get to the other side without being obtrusive.
Rob, come back.
I'm sorry. What I consider to be, I know I keep walking over there. What I consider to be obtrusive is you never want to walk in front of the ceremony, like in front, in between the pews and what's happening. I think walking behind is okay, as long as you do it quickly and quietly and discreetly and get over there and then just plant yourself.
He's not talking about a Catholic church altar that
oh,
you
no,
should be
no,
walking
no,
across, by the way.
We're assuming this venue. We're
Yes.
assuming this, this venue. So what I'm going to do here, in this case, is, and today I'll show you how we do this, when I feel like the groom is wrapping up his vows, when he's kind of getting toward the end, because remember, we're not going to show him the whole time in a fusion piece.
You're looking for some sort of positive reaction, smile. Once you get that,
right. So you don't necessarily need to be on him the whole time if you don't want to. Once he gets toward the end, we're going to flip to the other side and just reverse it. Now we're looking at the bride over the groom's shoulder like this. Okay? So 3 shots for like the ceremony itself. And that's really what I would leave it at. And then when they kiss at the end and then come back up the aisle, that's a perfect opportunity for you to run to the back, grab your slider, put it on the floor, pre-focus halfway up the aisle. Remember yesterday when we did that slide and we had Tyler walk right into the shot? That's when you do that. They kiss. It's kind of even cool to get the kiss out of focus and then let them walk into the foreground, something like that. So every ceremony is different. They don't all flow the same way either, so you're going to run into barriers and obstacles and things like that. But just thinking of what money shots you want to get ahead of time will really help you to sort of plan it out, what you want to get.
so basically, if you're going to think about the ceremony and what shots you're planning to get there, we talked a little bit about storyboarding might be helpful. Think about the bride coming down the aisle, but the groom's reaction of that happening as one, the vows being the second, and if you can get those 3 angles, that's great. And then third is the recessional. I always say processional, recessional backwards, but the recessional, if you have a slider, or even if you don't have a slider, just having the camera, you could stick the camera on the ground, and that way you have like the pews as a foreground, and you have a pre-focus for the bride and groom to walk down the aisle.
Yeah, or if you have a tripod, like a little cheap small tripod, just put it down low, and you can get the same effect. Instead of the camera sliding, it's just low down to the ground and let them walk into focus.
Yeah.
So, cool.
So that's what the ceremony is going to look like and what we'll demonstrate. The bride and groom photo session is something that I think we enjoy probably the most.
Which we don't ever usually get enough time with. It just seems like we're always rushed by this point of the day.
Right, but hey, that's weddings. I think we all feel like we never have enough time with the bride and groom. But the bride and groom photo session is definitely where you will see a lot of me directing and knowing the things that Rob needs to get. A lot of that happening, and I'm having them and doing certain things or certain motions so that Rob can get the shots that he needs. Because normally the photo session is going to be your time with the most control. So if you're doing fusion on a wedding day, this is the part where you want to do those artistic things. Try a rack focusing shot where the groom is in the background and you focus to the bride in the foreground, or back and forth. Try a pre-focusing shot where you have them holding hands and walking towards the camera, and you just get the shot of the hands coming into focus. So these are parts where you can really practice and have fun with, because the bride and groom parts you can kind of put in at any point, you know, to kind of have a foreshadowing of the bride and groom and being married and happy.
They're pretty generic shots. The bride and groom together is a pretty generic shot. You can kind of use it anywhere in a film or in a fusion piece.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's really great for the bride and groom as well, that you're not keeping them in a very stiff and tight position, that you keep adding the movement and you keep changing up the poses so that you can see all the in-between moments that you know are being captured by the person you have doing video.
And today you'll be able to watch us do this and then see the tether on the screen to see what we're doing with the video and those little moments in between. And it really, this is where having a second person doing the video for you really is beneficial, because now it's getting done at the same time. And whereas, on the senior shoots and on engagement shoots, if you're doing it alone, it takes double the time. Wedding days, you don't have that luxury, so now we're nailing it all in one shot, which is really good.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
Receptions.
then the last part is the reception. And just to give you guys a heads up, we are going to do the bride getting ready, bridal photo session. Then we're going to have a reception. And then after the reception in the last segment of the day is when we're going to do the first look ceremony and bride and groom. This is a little bit of backwards, but logistically we have to bump up the party a little bit and start that earlier. What's going to be really fun, and this is a question a lot of us, we get this so much, is about lighting during the reception. Because as photographers, what do? We flash, and you can't flash on the video. And while we don't want to have bright lights on the top of our camera, like in no way would I ever stick my video light and like hot shoot it on the top of my camera and blind people.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of questions about what we do for lighting, and specifically audio as well for the parents' dance, not the parents' dance,
Speeches.
the parents' toast.
Yep. Maid of honor, best
Maid
man.
of honor, best man. We're going to have the mom do it at the reception today. So we're going to black out this room, totally black it out for you guys, and set up lights, and we're going to see exactly how it is. And you really only need 2 lights. You don't need to have more than 2 lights.
And they don't need to be crazy powerful lights either.
Exactly.
You can make it work with depending on the venue too. This is a relatively small room. We can definitely make it work with what we have. But this is the general layout. Guys, I'm going to tell you one thing about lighting real quick, because I'm going to draw a diagram of how I light my receptions.
EXO football style.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
But the first thing to really remember is don't ever put a light on your camera.
Yes.
On-camera lighting is the most unflattering light that you can ever use. And not only that, it'll never be beautiful. It just looks like direct flash. Like if you have your camera flash on, you just pow, right somebody right in the face with no other lighting. Like direct flash has a use if you're using it to fill and you have the sun outdoors, pin lighting. But you're talking about a dark room, black room, boom, and you're hitting them with direct flash. It's just, they're gonna be floating in space because they were exposed only for the faces, and it's just not flattering, okay? So we don't wanna do that. Instead, I use a 2-point lighting method, okay? For example, now this would be for toasts, because I'm generally not lighting for ceremonies in churches. And a lot of times when there's ceremonies in a venue, usually the lighting is pretty adequate. I might have to fill or throw a light up here and there just to kind of splash some light in maybe a dark area of the aisle. But I don't go crazy unless they don't have lights. And I actually have done weddings where the wedding planner did not consider any lighting at all. And they were having it in a tent at 6 o'clock in like October. And it was dark. And if I didn't have my lights, there would have been no light and people would have been staring at blackness. So it was beneficial that we had our lights. But we're going to focus on receptions because this is mainly what people want to know when it comes to lighting. So what I do is, let's say for instance, there's going to be speeches, okay? What do you see most at weddings? Where do the speakers usually stand? Does anybody can just throw out something? Behind the bride and groom.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Usually they put them, if this was the bride and groom table, they put them behind. I don't want that. Now it might seem easy, and maybe if you're just one camming in Fusion, that's fine, maybe you want that. I like them to be looking at the bride and groom when they're giving the toast. I don't want the bride and groom to be like this. I don't want them to have to turn their chairs all the way around and look at them like this. And a lot of times when they're back here, they're up against a wall. So it's just flat. There's nothing really there. So what I always tell them is say, you know what? Nope, we're going to move. And I work this out with the DJ and the maitre d' in advance. We're going to put the speaker on the dance floor. If this was the dance floor, let's say this is the dance floor, and the head table is here, I'm going to put them about 3/4 of the way back, looking at the bride and groom. Okay? And what that's going to do is make it so if I put my cameras, if I put one camera here, again, we're just assuming we have only one camera. If I put my camera here and my lights here, that's a bad angle. My light here and another light back here. Basically, what's happening is I'm shooting into my lights, and that's going to give me that really nice pin lighting and stuff like that. So the way I would do this, and this is the actual diagram, here's the head table. Bride and groom are sitting at the head table looking this way, and the speaker is going to be here standing on the dance floor, okay? This is not the frame of the video. This is just a diagram of the room, okay?
Kind of overhead shot.
Overhead. So I'm going to put one light behind the speaker. Maybe it's far back in the room against the wall, okay? But it's going to be back there, and what that's doing is flooding light this way. And what that's doing is it's filling in the faces of my bride and groom, and it's slightly off-center of the room, so it's nice 3/4 lighting. And it's also providing pin light or backlight to my speaker, okay? Then I'm going to put my camera here, all right? And then I'm going to put another light back here behind the bride and groom on the same side of the room, because again, we don't want to cross that axis. We want the light coming from the same direction. And this light is now providing fill for my speaker and pin light on my bride and groom. It's pretty basic. Okay.
And then from that angle, do you guys remember if you would probably have both the photographer and the videographer on that
on this
side. So you have both of them there. Do you remember why you want to stay on that side of the 180 and what it is you... Right, so you make sure that they're not looking the same direction. So when you have the two side by side, you've got, it almost looks like they're looking at each other. And you want to think that way when you're thinking of the negative space on either side of them as well.
Exactly, because when I frame my shots up, if I turn this camera this way, I'm shooting 3/4 on the speaker. If I turn my camera this way, I'm shooting 3/4 on the bride and groom. Now, this is considering one camera for Fusion. When I do my cinema stuff, we have a camera here and a camera here, and one's on them and one's on this. And then we have a third one walking around getting reactions on the tables.
But for you guys,
we're not doing that. So what, in essence, what the frames will look like by doing this is if you turn the camera to the left and you've got the bride and groom, you've got this nice, they're sitting up behind the table and they're looking out. They're not looking at the camera. You don't want to put the camera right in front of them, off to the side. They're looking out past the camera, and then your other shot is the speaker, 3/4 view looking this way, and they're looking at each other.
and the nice thing is, because of the way that the lighting is set up almost to the back and behind them, you're catching the shadow side of their face, which will slim them down a little bit, but it's 3/4 lighting, so you're gonna get the Rembrandt lighting, but it's still the shadow side of their face, so not only does it slim them down, you still have the pin lighting, but it makes the ambiance look like a reception and look like it's dark and candlelit and beautiful.
Right. And I do that, whenever I'm using artificial light, I'm always shooting into my lights. I'm never shooting with the light to my back, because again, that's the same thing as on-camera lighting. It's just gonna be flat, Right now I'm looking at your faces, and our main light source is coming from up here. It's hitting you over here. So this whole side of your face on this side is all lit up. I would never want to shoot you here. It looks okay, but it's gonna look much better if I shoot you over here, because the shadow side of it is facing me, and it just looks more dimensional. Right? So I try to use that approach in everything that I shoot, from dancing footage to parents' dances. A lot of times we'll shoot into the light directly with them in front of it for the flare, So that's what we're looking for dynamic video lighting. But that's, for Fusion, if you're just looking to just get a piece of the toast reactions for the Fusion piece, because we know maybe we're going to lay in the audio of a part of the toast, it's great to just get a couple shots of maybe the speaker in between sentences while everybody's laughing, and she's smiling, but she's looking towards the bride and groom. You can isolate that. Then you maybe take a shot of the bride and groom, because they're just reacting the whole time. They're just sitting there like, this big grin on their face, and you've got all that different reaction. Maybe the bride starts crying, and you can put in a sweet part of the audio there. So that's what you're looking for. Again, you're not looking to cover the whole thing. You're just looking for those moments. If it makes you comfortable to film more of it or less of it to make sure you're getting it, you can do that too. Keep your clips short though. Only roll 10 to 15 seconds and stop, 10 to 15 seconds and stop, because it's going to be really hard.
It's much easier for you to go through them, and we'll see that tomorrow.
Going through a long video clip without using a real video editing program is going to be clunky, and it's going to be difficult to get to. Okay, so that's basically how we do the speeches. And the dances and the party dancing. Well, basically, we've already got our 2-point lighting in place. That's already set up. I usually set that up during cocktail hour. So cocktail hour is happening, and I've got this downtime. I'm now going to set up my lights. And I don't usually turn them on until the introductions begin. And we could talk about introductions a little bit, grand introductions when they introduce the bride and groom into the room. A lot of the times, if it's just one camera, just be in one place and just kind of film it. Pre-focus. And let them walk into the room, into your focal plane. You'll probably not end up using any of that in your Fusion piece. But if you want to film it, you can. A cool shot is go outside with the bride and groom and stand behind them before they walk into the room for your Fusion piece. And if you have a Steadicam, of course, I walk in behind them, much to her chagrin, because I always end up being in a lot of her shots.
Yes.
I've tried to like hang back a little bit, count to 10, and then go. But what you can do is just go outside in the back with your monopod and just focus on the door. Or you know how they open the door every time for like couples to go through? When they open the door, quick focus on the table outside or something out beyond the doors and just leave your focus there, pre-focus. This way when they announce the bride and groom, the doors swing open, all that light floods in and they walk out, they walk right into your focal plane. Something to think about for introductions. But since we already have our 2-point lighting in place for the dances, I'm just now using my lights creatively when I walk around and shoot. And for Fusion, I'm looking at 5 to 10 second shots. Look over here, that's a good angle on Dad because he's dancing with his daughter. Get a nice close-up, usually with a telephoto lens, a nice close-up on his face, and they're dancing like this, maybe he starts crying. And then I'll either wait for them to pivot and turn, or if you want a different ambiance, different light, move to a different angle, maybe shoot into your second light and get the bride's face, and wait till they come around and you get the bride's face.
Because everybody dances a little waddle and slow circle, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, so that would be it, like that's all. So we'll demonstrate how we do that and work together, because the whole time I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't want to be in her shot, and she doesn't want me and I don't want to be, I don't want her in my shot. So we're always thinking about where each other is. And think about it this way. Most of the weddings we shoot together, and it's cinema crew, photo crew, there's 6 of us. 6 of us. But the way we do the cinema to stay out of the way is we hide ourselves in the crowd. So because we just have the monopod. So basically, while the parents' dances are going on, or even introductions and first dance, I've got my second shooter, like this gentleman here with a monopod, is standing in the crowd, shooting like over the shoulder of people, and that kind of gives you that feeling that you're in the crowd.
Because they're all shaded, they're all shadowed.
Yep, and it's like a nice wide shot, not wide, but maybe like a 50mm lens. And then I'll have another one somewhere else in the crowd, or maybe down low with the slider, shooting up into the lights.
So one of the
keeps
Fusion,
us out of the way.
Yeah, one of the Fusion, if you're thinking of that, you could stick them into the aisle or into the crowd during the dances. Would be a great place to have them go as a suggestion if you either don't want them seen or if you want just a totally different angle.
Right, thanks for condensing that for me. I was getting carried away.
Well, you start thinking cinema and you just go there.
Yeah, I'm trying to give a contrast, of how much different it is to shoot cinema than it is for Fusion. Again, we want to keep it simple. So just a couple shots of those dancing portions is really all you need.